Hello everyone, Randy Harrington here. Uh, this video is going to be a prerequisite to viewing prior to the video I'm going to put out about us approaching that juvenile in the field at the 400 with Dan Nedrolo, who was with us, the biologist who was with us at the time. This is what happened somewhat during that event, but also what preceded that event, in the fact that we had something at our table in our campground uh, that was right before we came down and walked out and caught the juvenile out in the field. So what I want to do is I want to lay this out, because if I make this part of the other video, the other video is just going to be too extremely long to hold people's attention, you know, for very long. So this will allow you to have a good understanding of what happened prior to the event and contributed to the event. So it starts out with, you can see our base camp, and if you watch any of the other videos, you you're pretty much familiar with the layout of the 400 and our base camp area. So the two little red things on there is the canopy and a tent. The canopy is to the right. That's where the table was set up underneath the canopy. And it was, I don't know, I think it was about 2 a.m. and I was up on the top part of the property, and Shane had gone into town to get Dan, and he came back into town, and I was still up at the top with my thermal camera in a field, a big 40-acre field. So we all came down to camp, and the next picture will show us coming towards the base camp there, that yellow line. We were in a Polaris Ranger, and it was me, Dan, and Shane. And when we came into camp, Dan had driven from Michigan. So he was pretty tired, been driving for 9 to 12 hours, I think. And we knew that he was tired, but it was 2 a.m. and I said, "Hey," I said, I've got my thermal stuff here. I can throw it on, and we can go ahead and go on out and walk down, towards the mud flats, just see what's going on. We've caught them on thermals out there before. So are you interested? And sure enough, Dan says, "I'm in. Let's go." So we packed up, loaded up so we weren't there very long, and then we took off down the trail. So this represents where we headed from the campsite. All those dots are our footsteps going down that trail. And you can see the trail. It's a well-worn trail. You can see where I wrote the mud flats to the left there. That's where the field starts to open up, where you come out of the woods and it starts opening up, and the trees become more sparse. Lots of field grass, lots of scrub, but that's where it heads towards the mud flats, which a lot of the prints have been found. So, you need to watch some of our other videos to get an understanding of where things are at on this property, and the likelihood of what happened this night is indeed, out in that same direction where we catch all the footprints. So, one of the patterns with footprints so far for years has been, when there was two juveniles, that the mother would always be in close proximity, but not necessarily right next to them. She would be found, maybe some distance away, keeping an eye on them and allowing them the freedom to move around and meander and explore. That seemed to be the pattern, and that's exactly what this pattern showed this night. So where the X is where we spotted the one laying in the field, and you can see the little spot in the field laying there. So back at the campground, we had a table set up under the canopy. The canopy, it had an L-shaped design where I would have a lot of my supplies, cooking, all the elements for cooking, a water jug, a 5-gallon orange water jug on the left side of the table. You can see it there. And there's some handy wipes sitting on the table there, and it's in white. You can see that there. And in the middle, I've got an orange arrow pointing towards a box of silverware or plasticware. A few nights before, we'd come into camp after being out hiking all night, and the only thing on the table that was different was that silverware box was lying on its side. And I told Shane, I said that something was on the table because that has never laid on its side. I'm very peculiar with the way I have things set up. So that would be the case here. Needless to say, we started putting recorder out on the table. And so at this time, when we got back, I looked at the table and I said, there's something out of place. Those handy wipes are sitting on the table, and they were normally on top of the 5-gallon water jug. So that's different. Uh, but at this point, we hadn't listened to the audio, so we didn't know anything that we could hear, but we did notice that that was out of place. And it appeared that something had pulled one of the wet naps out and left dirty smudge marks on it. So that would be the picture coming up. So there's the wet naps sitting on the table with a partially pulled out wet nap. And remember, this was up on top of the water jug. So something either started pulling it out and fell to the table, or it set it down on the table because there was nothing else. Look at there's items on the table. You would think if a raccoon or something was up on that table, that there would be other things misplaced and moved around and out of place, but there wasn't. So here's the video about me describing what happened when we came back and discovered this at the table.
And go.
Even though my table's a mess, this is my camping table and it's a mess, I noticed immediately last night something that was odd when we came back. This box here was laying down like that. And throughout the whole 3 days that we've been here, I've never laid it down. It's always been standing up so I can take my stuff out of it. So we just thought that was a little odd. Tonight we get back. Tonight, this is right here on the table. And throughout this whole camping trip, it's been kept right here. And I use it to clean my hands, and I keep my water jug cup right next to it. Because when I place it on here, it's right next to the package constantly. But when we get back, and it was down here on the table like that, with some pulled out, and you can see it's dirty and smudgy.
Super dirty.
Because I only had I didn't want it to dry out. I didn't want to pull one out that was dry, so I only let a little bit hang out like that.
Oh, so it was pulled out?
Yeah, it was pulled out, and you can see it's dirty.
Ah.
So a hand that was touched the ground would sure have dirt all over it.
It's really dirty. Interesting. So you had a recorder going while we were gone.
Right there. Right there at the corner of that table.
There's a good chance we may hear that being moved. Awesome.
We thought that might be a zipper being manipulated on a duffel bag right by the recorder and parabolic, which you can see is sitting at the bottom of the bottom edge of the table, is where the recorder was sitting. And here pretty soon, whatever is there starts to go through some of the items on the table. We thought that sounded like the metal pans, cooking pans. Then the food box. And then there was a metal tank that gets clanked. So it's working its way down the table, and the last thing it does is mess with the wet nap package.